From the headquarters of FtS English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. Turkish police are searching a forest on the outskirts of Istanbul for the remains of Saudi journalist Jamal Kashoggi, who disappeared 2 weeks ago in Istanbul. They're also searching a coastal city. Samples from the searches of the consulate and the consul's residence are to be analyzed for any traces of Khashoggi's DNA. Meanwhile, several human rights organizations have asked Turkey to allow the United Nations to investigate the death. For human rights NGOs have demanded Ankara to carry an independent probe on how Khashoggi died. The journalist disappeared when entering the Saudi consulate on October 2nd.
We believe that the only way to ensure that there is no whitewash in the disappearance of Jamal Kashoggi is that the United Nations take on an independent, transparent and international investigation.
And as the international pressure grows for the lack of clarity of what happened with Khashoggi, local media are receiving and revealing information. Turkish newspaper Yeni Safak has said it has access to the audio clip that reveals how the journalist was tortured and beheaded in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Honduran troops and police have blocked a migrant caravan from crossing the border from Honduras into Guatemala on Thursday. Migrants then used the path through a jungle area to avoid authorities. Waves of people have departed from Guatemala at daybreak, leading to Mexico as they try to reach the United States. And while the first group of Honduran migrants has already arrived at the Guatemalan border with Mexico, thousands more are walking across Guatemala on their way to the United States. The migrant caravan set off from Honduras last weekend.
Honduran migrants are trying to reach the capital of Guatemala to continue their journey to Mexico and the United States. Some have opted to get on trailers, since their fatigue is obvious. Despite that, they say they are not going back to their country.
We
are not going back, and I am not a leader. I am the people, and for the people, if I die, I die, and if we have to fight, we will have to fight.
The conditions in which they're making this journey are not ideal. Overcrowding in trucks and the high temperature of the eastern region of the country has led the Ombudsman for Human Rights to demand controls from the Civil National Police to avoid children being taken in this kind of transport. Those who had begun the journey by truck now have to walk again.
It is a very complicated situation because the number of Honduran people that are passing through Guatemalan territory is high. They have the purpose to reach as soon as possible to the border with Mexico, and therefore they are seeking the way to transport them in a more agile way. The situation is that we know for a fact that some people have suffered accidents or harm when they get into the trucks.
It's clear that a large number of Hondurans have chosen to stay on the caravan and walk thousands of kilometers to the Guatemalan capital. This mother with her 3 children says that the wish to have a job is what keeps her going, and says her goal is to reach the United States.
I left my country because I don't have a job and I have 3 children. I'm living with the idea of moving forward because I am alone with them. I wish that they let us pass. My idea is to go to work to move forward with my children.
Hundreds have already arrived in the capital and others are arriving at the border with Mexico, all with a clear goal of leaving their country, which they say has denied them the possibility of a better quality of life.
And U.S. President Donald Trump again threatened Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador over the migrant caravan. Trump took to Twitter to warn that if Mexico doesn't control the situation, he will send the U.S. military to the southern border to stop the caravan of migrants. He also said he is cutting all funds to those countries. He accused the migrants of being criminals. The Guatemalan president has reacted to his U.S. counterpart's threats to cut off aid to Central American countries if they don't stop the caravan.
With the United States and with every other country in the world, with me in government, we have maintained exchanges at the level at which countries should have them. No aid should be conditional. No aid should be demanded.
Meanwhile, Mexican President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he will offer working visas to migrants when he takes office. He added this is a way of offering an alternative to those who decided to leave their countries. The elected president also rejected the threats of U.S. President Donald Trump to stop migrants from reaching the United States. Our correspondent in Mexico City, Pablo Perez, has more on the caravan heading to the U.S.
So after knowing of the migrant caravan that comes from Central America, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, released another Twitter rant, and where he is blaming the governments of Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and also Mexico of, well, not caring for their people and, well, letting all these migrants go through the southern border of the United States. He is threatening those countries of cutting off any kind of financial aid that they might get from the United States. And he is saying that he will send troops to the border to close the border to Mexico if Mexico doesn't stop the migrant influx. This caravan that is said to have around 2,000 people has already left El Salvador, Honduras, and is in Guatemala right now en route to Mexico, to the southern state of Chiapas, where they will be received by human rights organizations, Human Rights Watch organizations, and other local migrant aid organizations. And well, President Trump's posture contrasts strongly with the President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador, that says that the only way of coping with migration is improving their life, the quality on their countries of origin.
We thank Pablo Perez for that report. More news now. The Ecuadorian government has expelled the Venezuelan ambassador, Carol Delgado. The decision came after Communications Minister Jorge Rodriguez made some comments on the Ecuadorian President Lenín Moreno.
I heard President Lenín Moreno saying that 6,000 Venezuelans in bad health entered in his country. That means that 149 buses had to leave Venezuela daily to Ecuador. Moreno says 1 million Venezuelans arrive to Ecuador, but that is possible only if 140 buses leave Venezuela daily for 7 years.
In response, Venezuela has declared Ecuadorian Ambassador Elizabeth Méndez persona non grata and said she has 72 hours to leave. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry says Moreno lied about the number of Venezuelan migrants in Ecuador and their health conditions. The communique added that this is a consequence of the latest visit of U.S. Vice President Mike Pence to Ecuador. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Brazilian Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad has condemned illegal online tricks to promote a defamation campaign against him. Haddad has accused his right-wing rival Jair Bolsonaro of hiring firms to spread lies through bulk messages via online apps. He has responded to a report by a Folha de Sao Paulo newspaper that discovered contracts worth more than $3 million to send out messages attacking him.
Today, the Folha de Sao Paulo daily brought proof that there was in fact a meeting of a criminal organization of businessmen that through a slush fund promoted a campaign of defamation, trying to defraud the first round.
Bolsonaro supporters have murdered a trans woman in Sao Paulo. Last Tuesday, a group of male supporters of the right-wing candidate killed the woman in the center of the city. They stabbed her while shouting, "Bolsonaro, yes, him," as a response to the political and feminist Ele Now demonstrations. In the 10 days since the election, there have been 50 violent attacks across 18 states in Brazil. Still in Brazil, a court in Sao Paulo has overturned a conviction for torture and murder against the most prolific murderer under the military dictatorship of the 1970s. The ruling is seen as a worrying precedent, as the leading candidate in the current presidential race has himself spoken in favor of torture and praised military rule.
The Sao Paulo Court of Justice decided that the statute of limitation does apply to the crime committed by Colonel Brilhante Ustra during the military dictatorship. He was responsible for the torture and murder of the journalist Luis Eduardo Merlino in 1971. The victim's family has been seeking justice for 47 years.
The court is very conservative, but I believe that they are also affected by the conservative wave that is now sweeping Brazil today, and which serves those who defend torture.
In addition, the court didn't find evidence that Ustra took part in the crime committed at the Military Intelligence Center, a notorious torture site which he commanded. The judgment contradicts the early ruling of a lower court and hundreds of testimonies given to the Truth Commission, like that of Eleonora Menicucci, who was also tortured.
It is terrifying in terms of truth, memory, and democracy. In Brazil, we are in a fight between civilization and barbarism.
After the first court ruling, the case was shelved for 6 years, and Ustra died a free man. With just days to go before the presidential runoff, this court decided in favor of the men who Jair Bolsonaro praised during the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff. She was also tortured by Colonel Ustra, and as president, she set up Brazil's Truth Commission.
According to all the human rights treaties Brazil signed and ratified, the crime of torture is subject to a ruling of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, which doesn't accept self-amnesty. So the statute of limitations does not apply to torture and murder.
In the current climate of political violence in Brazil, the court's decision to grant impunity to someone recognized as the military dictatorship worst killer has caused surprise and shock.
The Peruvian opposition leader Keiko Fujimori has been released from jail. After a week under arrest, the court overturned her detention. She was accused by prosecutors of receiving money from the Brazilian construction firm Odebrecht for her election campaign in 2011. Peruvians have taken to the streets again to reject corruption in the political and justice systems.
Every day a new case of corruption, and people are fed up. As Peruvians gathered for another protest, news came through that the leader of the white-collar criminal gang and former judge Cesar Nostroza had escaped from the country.
It's totally despicable. The whole political system is responsible, and it starts with the leaders of the Congress. They didn't do what was needed for the Ministry of Justice to be able to act.
He has made a mockery of us. He has been protected by the police chief, Jorge Chavez, as well as by the Congress and the justice system.
This is just one of the reasons why Peruvians took to the streets again. They're also rejecting a series of arbitrary decisions by the Congress. Among them, the law that lets the dictator Alberto Fujimori and other human rights abusers go free.
We will not let him walk free for the murder of our relatives. He has to go back to jail and serve his 25 years. He is pretending to be sick, that he is dying, but God is great and he will have his punishment.
The demonstrators say that instead of legislating in favor of the country, Congress has turned into a cover for those accused of corruption. Among them, the public prosecutor Pedro Chaverri and pro-Fujimori congressmen and their allies.
It has become a gangster institution. It just serves the powerful, never the people.
They are passing laws to protect criminals. There are parties like Popular Force, APRA, just protecting corrupt judges.
We asked the president to close Congress immediately.
The protest was not only directed at Congress. Peruvians also want the justice system to punish severely the politicians and former presidents accused of corruption.
Several application-based delivery riders have teamed up in Argentina to form a new trade union. They want their employment status to be formalized in law. There are over 100,000 Argentinians working as riders, but they are not eligible for certain rights that covers accidents at work, health benefits, and retirement plans. Officials from the Provisional Riders Trade Union have already met with lawmakers for setting up basic employment standards. This initiative is first of its kind in Latin America. Chile has closed new deals to increase lithium mining production in the Atacama Desert, but reports say one of the companies involved extracted more lithium in the area than its permits allowed. Experts say the Chilean authorities and the companies have no clear understanding of how their activities affect water sources in the area. Lithium industry watchers say water supply there is of huge importance in satisfying soaring global demand. 2 student protesters have been detained in Trinidad and Tobago during a demonstration in the University of the West Indies. Police clashed with students who blocked the south entrance to reject security issues on campus. A series of robberies and violence have been reported in recent weeks, which culminated in an alleged bloody assault on a female student. Campus Principal Professor Brian Copeland attempted to allay protesters' concerns.
We have a system in place. We have a security force in place. We work with the state police. We will next week be commissioning a pilot where an app that has been created that will run on your phone that will expand our security system even more. 1,000 students will be piloting this project as of next week.
If you were a student on this campus, do you feel safe? Would you feel safe? Would you stand here and listen to an administration that is telling you we're doing all we can? It's not enough. The same remedy has failed. When will we see change? When?
Cuba is expressing solidarity with Palestine after the UN voted to allow them to act like a full organization's member in 2019. Cuba's permanent mission to the United Nations said, "We express to the Palestinian government and people our unwavering solidarity and support for the admission of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations." We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Clashes between the Palestinians and the Israeli forces in Khan al-Ahmar in the West Bank have intensified since a court ordered its demolition, defying the international pressure. Let's look at the daily struggles of these villagers.
A peaceful march by the Bedouin villagers of Khan al-Ahmar with just one demand, not to be uprooted from their homes. As they reach the next street, Israeli forces attack this unarmed group. Israeli soldiers start beating the group and attacking them with pepper spray. Minutes later, one protester is badly injured, and a woman has been arrested for resisting the army. Since September, this community of nearly 200 people has been under constant threat. Earlier this month, an Israeli court issued an order to raze their village to the ground. Days later, bulldozers start rolling into this village of goat herds and sheep herds.
These roads are being made so that Israeli army, bulldozers, and buses can enter the streets quickly, one after another for one quick attack, and to facilitate the process of evacuation and demolition as soon as possible.
We will not leave this place unless it is by force, and hopefully we will not leave. Even if they demolish, we will rebuild. Again and again they demolish, we will rebuild.
Residents believe this demolition reflects a border Israeli plan to push Palestinians out of East Jerusalem and the West Bank. Territories captured by Israel in the 1967 war, which the Palestinians won back. Khan al-Ahmar has become an emblem of the Palestinian struggle for statehood.
If Israel takes over this place, this will mean that the same thing could repeat in 46 other Bedouin communities in this area.
With bulldozers preparing for a final offensive, This marginalized community remains determined. They know the future of their struggle depends on this piece of land they call home.
Senior Palestinian official Saeb Erekat has condemned the decision of the United States to merge its consulate with the new embassy in Jerusalem. The consulate general, which served Palestinians, will be merged with embassy into a single mission. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the decision was aimed at improving the efficiency of its offices. For his part, Erekat said the decision is led by an ideological team that wants to reward Israeli crimes and impose a one-side solution. A court in Benin has sentenced opposition leader Sebastián Ajavón to 20 years in prison over drug charges. The former presidential candidate did not attend the hearing in capital Porto Novo. Ajavón's lawyers have previously said there were serious irregularities in the process, calling the allegations absurd and false. Bhutan is voting in a national election for a new government. The new government will have the challenge of boosting the economy without compromising the country's fierce independence streak. This is the third election since the monarchy initiated a transition to democracy in 2008. French Minister of Foreign Affairs Jean-Yves Le Drian has visited a new academy against terrorism in Ivory Coast. The French minister has met with the Ivorian Minister of Defense. He said both countries will join elite units specialized in terrorism to prevent these type of acts. The international site for fighting terrorism is due to open in 2019. Women have marched in Liberia's capital, Monrovia, calling for justice and protection for girls allegedly sexually abused by a charity worker. Protesters delivered a petition to several ministries demanding action following the publication of a documentary in ProPublica. The film reveals how the late co-founder of the U.S. charity, Macintosh Johnson, raped girls in a school open to save them from sexual exploitation. The Liberian vice president is demanding an investigation. The United States Justice Department has opened an investigation of child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church in Pennsylvania. Federal prosecutors have served as subpoenas to search dioceses across the state. Back in August, a state grand jury report revealed hundreds of allegations of children being sexually abused by priests in churches across Pennsylvania. And finally, hardlines have blocked one of the holiest temples in India to women. Hundreds of men have stopped women from entering, throwing stones at buses and blocking intersections. They have also called for a 12-hour strike. The Supreme Court has recently removed a law which used to ban women in menstrual age to enter the temple. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.